Greetings, class. I will be covering this week's assignment for talking about a supervisory style and my interview with my higher education professional administrator. The person that I chose to interview is a mentor of mine, and she helped me get into the field of higher education and student affairs. She also is a graduate of the Georgia Southern Higher Education Administration program. So she was able to give me a lot of feedback and insight as to how to be a good supervisor. One of the things that we discussed in the interview was how she differentiated her styles between student staff and professional staff. So she said that with student staff, she's a lot more adaptable and she's willing to help them grow in whatever way that she can. Most of the times that comes with being adaptable to helping the student learn how to be adaptable, as well as bringing the student from where they are to where they want to be. And in that, she said it takes her taking the time to learn how they like to communicate, learn what forms of communication work best for the student initially, so that she can help them gain and grow how to turn that type of communication into a professional type of communication. Conversely, she talked about a professional staff, and she said that it's also adaptable, but it's more of a coaching style. She currently supervises 3 professional staff, and the coaching style that she uses works to help the staff better understand their role as to how they need to work together to accomplish their goal. A lot of times, she said that it's not necessarily just her coaching or pushing like a dictatorship, but more of a, I'm teaching you the way, and I'm willing to be a servant leader and do the work with you, as well as if you want to draw up the play, if you want to come up with an idea and execute the idea, she's willing to support and challenge that idea so that not only the goal gets accomplished, but the professional themselves gains insight and gains growth and experience from that occurrence. I also asked her just in terms of what she would consider being 3 keys of being a supervisor. She said, number 1, being open-minded and having an open door policy, just being prepared to receive whatever information a person brings, as well as being able to not judge a person for their actions as it pertains to their preferences about certain things, and not feeling like, okay, well, in order for you to be this type of student affairs professional, you have to do X, this, and this. You have to check off these things on a list, but it's more of a, let me be open-minded to what you have to bring to me, because we may be able to work this situation out in a different way. Her number 2 thing of being an ultimate supervisor was being supportive of the team, physically being supportive, like I mentioned before, being a servant leader and getting down and doing the work with them, as well as just supporting their ideas and their thoughts as to how they can become better team members. Last thing is trusting. They want to be trustworthy. She said that being a good supervisor involves your team trusting in you, as well as you trusting in your team to get things done, so that you're not micromanaging, that you're not hovering over your employees or your supervisees just to be like, oh, you're doing your work? Okay, I'll be back. It's more of a, I'm giving you the task. I feel like you have the ability to complete the task. I'm going to allow you to do the task at your own pace. I'll come back for the result. And if you need any help, my door is open for you to gain that assistance that you need. I asked her, as a supervisor, is it easier to receive unpleasant news or to present unpleasant news? She definitely said that it's easier to receive unpleasant news rather than present it. She said because when you're receiving news, you can take the time or the thought process to figure out exactly how you're going to react to the news that you've been given, versus if you are presenting unpleasant news, although you have the opportunity to try to figure out the best way to relay the unpleasant news, you do not know how the people that you're telling this news to are going to react. So that's just a question that I thought about, just in mentioning if you needed to terminate a student or staff member, professional staff member, that had a close connection to you or had a close connection to someone else that you knew and didn't want to create like a conflict of interest or a conflict of relationship because of that person's current issues. The last thing I asked her, well, what were some of the best practices and tips and tricks for a student affairs / higher education professional? Her thing was, number one, to never stop seeking information. You must be a lifelong learner. As students change, we must change and adapt to how they are. To stay engaged with current trends and literature, that means, constantly reading Chronicle of Higher Education, looking at the journals and watching the trends as students develop and watch how technology engages how students develop and change and grow. The second thing is the ability to understand the culture of where you are and how it impacts your position. So, campus culture, the culture of the students, makes a big appeal in how your position and how your job role is handled. So, she's saying that it's good to understand that culture and know how to move that culture forward. Last thing is work-life balance. So she says that to prevent burnout and to prevent burnout, she explained it simply like a candle. So if your candle burns out, it could be a matter of, the wind blowing or the entire candle just not being, or a candle not working out well. But it could be a burn off where there's no more wax to the candle. You've completely been out of it. Like there's nothing else and nothing more that you could do to make the situation any better. And you don't really understand how to come back from being so burnt out or being in a bad space. She also said that you need to know your limits and schedule those accordingly, and then remember the human side of you that you need to upkeep and make sure that you're doing well in. And that pretty much concludes the information. We talked about a whole lot more, but I don't want to take up too much time in our interview, but it was a great interview and I enjoyed it. Shout out to Atuana Royal. She is currently at Clay State University, serving in a wonderful capacity of over campus life. And I really appreciate her for allowing me the opportunity to interview her.